so this is one of our certificates. I just made one up, so this isn't anyone's information. But you're going to want to look and see and actually say certificate of analysis, showing that it's an official record. A lot of COAs at the very top are going to have some of the basic information, like the customer information, who is the one that requested the test or who owns the product. There's usually going to be a unique identifier for it, which is what we have here. And then our customers are able to tell us what other information they want on there.
All right, welcome to the iHemp Hour. My name's Dave Craybill. And I'm hearing feedback because I have something open. Why am I hearing that? I'm hearing myself, which is not a good thing. So,
well, the voices, Dave, it's the voices. That's what the problem is.
I don't lie. Normally it mutes so the web page was open. But all right, we are live on the iHemp Hour. We have a special guest today from North Dakota. We're excited about having Kia here. Mike Brennan is on vacation. He's out in Oregon visiting family. He's got a youngster grandchild that's having a birthday, so we'll miss Mike today. So nothing from the 420 post. He did invite me on. I was on his show yesterday, which was fun. He and Rick Thompson and Dan Sparrow and Jamie Campbell do the 420 post. That's available online. So good kudos to Mike to taking some time off. So Blaine, why don't you kick us off with a little bit of news?
All right, well, I'll be glad to. And again, we're missing our partner in crime there. It's too bad, but enjoy your time out there, Mike, and we'll have you back soon. So a lot of kind of news came out this last week. So I'm going to start with the first thing that came out. Well, actually, the first thing that started on Tuesday of this week. MDART put out an email reminder that Delta 8 products are now regulated under the MRA. So beginning on October 11th, which was a holiday, so really it started on the 12th, it's illegal for businesses to manufacture, process, transfer, inventory, sell, or give away Delta 8 THC or THCO accelerate without proper licensing from the Marijuana Regulatory Agency. MDART's previous announcements can be found on their website. So there's some House bills that they mentioned that passed it. But just to let you know that if you currently have Delta 8 products, you need to be doing that under the MRA rules, and you need to do that so you don't get in trouble on that. The other thing that they sent out this last week was reminder for processor handler license renewal. As a reminder, the current hemp processor handler license expires at midnight on November 30th, 2021. The new license cycle runs December 1st, 2021 through November 30th, 2022. One of the things that got to be 18 years old to be able to be a processor and applicant, and there's not a need to submit a background check for this like there was in prior years. So that saves you a little bit of time and money there. You don't have to do that if you're a processor. Grower, you're still going to have to do that, I'm sure. So one of the interesting things, the price is going to be $13.50 for that. And if you delay and don't get it until after that November 30th, if you're not postmarked by that date, then you got a $250 late fee. So let's avoid that if you don't need to pay that. I don't mind giving the state money, but there's no reason giving them extra money. Yeah. One of the interesting things that I read during this is that that processors, let me find it on here. So if you're a processor, licensed processors can also request names, phones, and email contact information from MDART for any hemp grower who indicated on their grower applications they allow the release of that information. So
they made that change. It was a legislative change that had to be made to allow that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now not anybody can get this, but processors can get those. So if you're interested in that, send your request to MDART and you'll be able to get that. So with that going on. The other big thing that happened that's really going to be big news for everybody, and you think, well, it's California, right? It doesn't mean much for anybody else. But California signed into law AB 45, legalizing ingestible CBD products in the state. It's a big day for the state hemp industry as it opens up a previous prohibited market for non-toxic intoxicating hemp derivative extracts to be sold in dietary supplements, food and beverage, and pet products. Sale of these products is currently illegal under federal level. So what's happening now is, since FDA is not doing their thing and Congress isn't doing their thing, the states are going to take this into their hands and say, yep, it's legal to do it here in the state. So that's going to be able to force other states to be able to do the same thing. And one way or another, we are going to have CBD legal to be able to use in dietary supplements and food as we move forward here. So just a big thing. I know, again, it's California, but it's going to play in big for everybody in this situation here. Just a quick recall I want to let everybody know about, because this came out the other day. Butterball recalls of ground turkey products due to possible foreign matter content. This is in Michigan. That's why I always bring the Michigan ones up. So if you bought Family Butterball natural ground turkey, or also Kroger ground turkey, and the expiration dates on these are used by 10/18 or 10/17, use by or freeze by. You're going to want to take that product back and get that. They have some blue plastic material that's showing up in some of that stuff. So let's see. The other big thing that's come out is U.S. Hemp Roundtable. Stop the stalemate. So we need everybody's help with this. Again, if you haven't contacted your legislators, you need to, especially on the Senate side is where we're having this problem. But the FDA just said the quiet part out loud. After nearly 4 years of promising to explore a regulatory pathway for retail sales of hemp-derived CBD, the FDA admitted last week that they don't plan to move on regulations anytime soon. At a Consumer Healthcare Products Association event, Acting Commissioner Janet Woodcock argued that current law is fairly clear, barring the agency from actions on CBD, putting the FDA in a stalemate position. He followed up, I don't know that it's a matter of FDA policy. I think it may well be a matter of law. So when Hemp Roundtable comes out and says, we disagree with the FDA's legal interpretation, but that is certainly clear, is that we need to congressional action to stop the stalemate and regulate CBD now. So we'll have it up on our site also, but you can also go to regulatecbdnow.com, and that you can fill out your information there and it sends it on. So please, everybody, help us out. Let's get this ridiculous thing taken care of and get this into so that the CBD industry and the hemp industry can continue to grow as it needs to.
Yeah, we need that.
The other thing that came out with this, the news release is from USDA NASS conducts its first hemp acreage and production survey. October 13th, National Agricultural Services, also known as NASS, NASS, will mail its first hemp acreage and production survey to 20,500 producers across the nation beginning October 18th. So that'll be next Monday. The hemp survey will collect information on the total plant and harvested area, yield, production, and value of hemp in the United States. So please, if you get this, please fill this out and send it in. It's going to help everybody in the long run to know what's going on out there. Even though we know the acres are down this year again, that's all right. This industry is still getting its legs and moving forward. But this information being available will really help everybody. And it also will help formulate the program as it goes forward. So Dave, that's kind of the news that we have for this week. A couple of things I do want to thank all of our sponsors that we've had. You can see them behind me there. We have the iHemp Hour, of course. We have Neogen, Scott Colville Crop Insurance, the Hemperor. Oh, I got to go this way, don't I? There we go. Adams Independent Testing, Kia. So we got there. Lakeland Hemp. Little kudos there on that. Now this Saturday is going to be our October hemp working event. We're going to start at Lakeland Hemp at about 10 o'clock in the morning. We're going to visit their facility there. If you saw the podcast we did with them, they've been able to vertically integrate, and they've been able to show how you can make money in this industry. And they do a lot of their products right through the internet. That's how they do a lot of it. U.S. Hemp Brokerage, Veritas Labs, iHemp Manufacturing. So again, we appreciate everybody helping us out. We all need, and then U.S. Hemp, U.S. Made by Hemp. U.S. has also another one of our sponsors there. They're located in Jensen. That's Jeff Gallagher, and we appreciate all the help and support they've been. So let's see what else going. The expo. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the show. But
Midwest iHemp Expo. Yes.
There we go. Midwest.
This is one of our Hemp Helper T-shirts from 2020.
That's our Hemp Helper. They is one of our hemp helpers. So that's coming up in January 21st and 22nd at the Lansing Center, same place we had it before, only this time we've got a little bit of a twist. On Friday night, we're going to have a nice party for the Hempy Award. So if you make anything hemp related, it could be CBD products, it could be creams, lotions, potions, whatever. The oil
could even be a service.
And service, yeah. Innovations also. There's also a photo contest. So it's going to be a lot of fun. A good way to get your product out and get it exposed to the masses out there, and win maybe a really cool award for it. So
celebrate hemp.
Cool. Yep. So that's going to be again January 21st, 22nd. Now Thursday on the 20th, Food Chain ID is going to be hosting a meeting on how to get certified with the U.S. Hemp Authority seal. So those of you that are processors and making products and you want to get that orange seal that's going to be recognized throughout the industry, letting everybody know that you're doing a safe product out there. That's going to be available on Thursday. There will be a cost for that. We'll have information on that real soon. So, and Dave, wow, I think I've said a lot. So back to you now. How about you? How about you introduce Kia?
Well, let's introduce Kia. So Kia Mikesh, and I probably murdered that last name again. Did I did it right? Fine. You coached me right. Okay, and Mikesh. So North Dakota. We saw Fargo. That's crazy. And you guys are crazy out there. So
it's exactly like that.
I'm sure it is. So Kia comes to the hemp industry from a family business, right, Kia?
Yeah.
And so Kia is leveraging her deep industry knowledge of federal regulations, testing operations, and software innovation. Kia Mikesh helped establish Adams Independent Testing as one of the first hemp testing laboratories in the state of North Dakota. Under her guidance, Adams emerged as a fast, reliable third-party hemp testing facility, earning the trust of customers across the U.S. Very true. Kia also serves as the Vice President of North Dakota Grain Inspection, Project Manager of AdamsNet, and Vice President of the American Association of Grain Inspection and Weighing Agencies. So, welcome, Kia. So glad to have you, and I just want to thank you again for joining the party in 2020. That was a good time. Our first expo, wasn't it?
Yeah, one of my favorite expos. We had a blast.
Excellent. So, welcome. So glad to have you here. So what's going on in North Dakota?
Hey, before we get into that, your audio is a little bit choppy.
Is it really?
Yeah, at least on my end it is. So
okay,
just let you know.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
North Dakota, nothing too crazy up here. We're pretty small, but things are seeming to be really steady. There's less acres planted and everything, but the people who are doing it are really a lot more established than the last few years. So that's exciting to see.
Yeah. So, and you do both medical marijuana and hemp. You're testing on both sides?
Yep, we do the medical marijuana for the state of North Dakota. We don't have recreational yet, but since marijuana can't be across state lines, we just don't do it in this state.
Okay. All right. And then, tell us about your testing and certifications. What makes Adams different than another laboratory?
Yeah, so we actually, the reason why we started AIT was that we've had a grain inspection laboratory for, my brother and I are third generation in that. So it's been a long time. We've lived this our entire lives, and we do testing between buyers and sellers of grain. And so when hemp was coming around with the Farm Bill, we were having a lot of people asking us, well, are you going to be testing our hemp? And it is very different testing than grain, but a lot of the similar concepts of how you interact between buyers and sellers, since that's essentially what we do in the hemp side too, is we're between buyers and sellers of hemp a lot of times during the different phases. So we wanted to do that to come out and be a little different. We had done a lot of research to help our current customers on the grain side find different labs. And we just noticed that there was a lot of complexity built around it. And I knew that was something that just wasn't going to be wanted. a bunch. And so we just really work to find a streamlined process, good customer service, and just really good quality. One of the things that we hear a lot is that, out west, I think specifically for a while, there was a lot of fraudulent activity going on with labs. And so one of the things that, even though it's not necessarily an accreditation or certification, under ISO, ISO 17025, you're supposed to have conflict free and no conflicts of interest. But that can mean a whole variety of things. As long as you have a plan to explain how that isn't a problem, you still could have a lab that's an owner in a processor or something like that. So we take that a step further because we're so used to the federal regulations on the grain side that has extremely strict standards for conflicts of interest and making sure there's nothing that could hurt the bias of the results. And so we do that same thing at AIT, and we make sure we have no interest in any other businesses related to hemp or marijuana. And so people can trust that we're going to give them their real result. So that's kind of why we started, but we are ISO 17025 accredited. We're in the process of DEA, but that's quite a lengthy process for those who know. So
yeah, they really
Well,
don't
I'm
know,
interested, the grain part. So do you know how many acres of hemp grain you guys had planted this last year by any chance?
I don't recently. I have it somewhere, but I don't off the top of my head. But I think out in Western North Dakota, they're doing more grain hemp.
So when you test for the grain, besides the THC level, what else are you testing for when you do that for the grain?
Yeah, so actually our grain testing is actually like wheat, corn, soybeans, sunflowers, things like that. So we have that side of our testing is revolved around that. And we have a separate company that does that. And then for hemp grain, currently we're testing the THC levels, and we can do some of the microbials, but they're also, people test for peroxide value, and that's something else that can be tested. We're not there yet. We haven't gotten that far, but we've been doing a lot of research on it.
Peroxide levels?
Peroxide values.
What is that?
Yeah, there's the question.
Yeah, so I'm not the scientist, so I'm not very good at explaining that in depth, but it's to make sure that there's safety within the grain. Grain is used more as food than the CBD side. So there's different food standards that go on the grain side.
Well,
I'm going to be sending you a sample in the next week. I just purchased some grain that was grown this year. So I'll send you a sample. I'll have you guys run some tests for me on it then.
All right.
I will be using it for feed. It is what I make for the oil. And then of course, the cake we have left over, we'll be using that for protein for either human and or animal consumption. So
that's
awesome.
awesome.
I'll be sending you some.
That's exciting.
Okay.
What about microbials? That's one of the issues we have in the state on the marijuana side in particular is the method. And we have one lab, but one of our sponsors, Veritas, they have the equipment to not only identify if there's mold or mildew, but what type it is, whether it's harmful or not, but not all the labs have that. So there was a big pushback in the state, and so they're just doing the Petri dish method, and a lot of these labs aren't really all that clean. So you set something out in a Petri dish, something's likely to, if something grows, it fails. It's not a good method. How do you guys handle that?
Yeah, we go through medicinal genomics, and we have the PCR machine. They did just recently, it was a few months ago now, they did a really big push to update their methods too. So they've become a lot more accurate. And with the exact things that you're talking about. We like it because we're able to get very clear answers. It's done the same each time. There's not, you're not relying on human interpretation. And so We have found that really good. Also, you are able to get your results substantially faster. So we have our chemists, we keep tabs on all of that, and our chemists look into it very frequently to make sure that it's still the right choice. But we've been having a lot of luck for it, and we've a lot of good times with it. In the medical marijuana, we use the PCR, and that's what they had recommended as well.
Okay. Yeah. It just makes sense to do it right? So
Yeah.
is that the legislation? Now, with hemp, we don't have any, at least in Michigan, they're not testing for mold and mildew typically.
Yeah, we don't have any in North Dakota. We don't have any regulations except for the THC that you need to test for. I know Minnesota has a few different of those tests that they have to test for in order to sell, but a lot of people still test for all those other ones like pesticides and microbials, just to prove that they have safe product. So even though there's not those regulations out there in every state, they're still usually testing for a lot of that.
Okay.
So you do a lot of testing for gummies and things like that as well, right? For the CBD side?
Yep. Oh, we've seen all sorts of things come in that people are putting CBD in. It's always really fun to see what comes into the lab. We're able to, our chemists take it and just verify that it's going to work with the various methods that we have, but usually they work very well. There are some things that the machines don't necessarily like. They can clog them up a bit, but yeah, we've tested a lot of different things.
So when you test the gummies, let's talk about that for a minute. So when you test the gummies, what is the customer needed, and what are you able to do in there?
Yeah, so gummies are the ones that are always interesting because everyone formulates them a little differently. And so it can change how they are ran. But the biggest thing with gummies to get the most accurate testing is actually to make sure that the lab gets a big enough sample size. So we've ran into that before where places have given us like 2 or 3 gummies, and then they maybe used another lab and gave them like 20 gummies. And the other lab is going to be more representative of that whole batch because there was more to it. So gummies are notoriously not extremely homogeneous products, depending on how people do them. And so the bigger the sample size is extremely important on that.
Okay.
But they're essentially frozen down so then they can be homogenized as a lot more than in its gummy state.
Kia, for the benefit of someone that hasn't dealt with the COA, could you walk us through the COA and what to look for and how to read? Because that's
yeah, definitely. Let me share my screen here. Can you see it?
Yep. Sure.
Okay. Awesome. So this is one of our certificates. I just made one up, so this isn't anyone's information. But you're going to want to look and see it and actually say certificate of analysis, showing that it's an official record. A lot of COAs at the very top are going to have some of the basic information like the customer information, who is the one that requested the test or who owns the product. There's usually going to be a unique identifier for it, which is what we have here. And then our customers are able to tell us what other information they want on there. So the more information you give, the more a customer of them can know what's going on. So a lot of people will ask us to put the strain on there, what the batch number and batch size is, then it can directly relate back to their other quality assurance methods and then when the sample is received. And the sample received is actually a really important thing to see because I've seen a lot of things in the past where people are like, well, this is a COA, this is what the product was at. And I was like, that's from a year ago. And you're like, have the product sitting here. That's not going to be representative of that product anymore. And mainly being flower or especially like harvested a little more fresh. So I've seen a lot of people do that. Maybe the COA is on fresh hemp and then later on it's trimmed down. And so it's not representative. I like the picture part a lot. That's what can tell me a lot when I'm reading other people's COAs and they're asking if anything's off or maybe fraudulent on it. Because the other thing I see is that people will just send in buds and everything will look great. The CBD will look wonderful, everything else perfect. And then when someone actually gets the material, there's a lot of stems and leaves and different items in there. So that picture is going to tell you what was sent in as a sample. And I really like to have people use it as a reference to make sure that's what the product you're getting looks like if you're looking at someone else's COA. So the other thing too is to note that if you're looking at something where it says total THC or total CBD or total cannabinoids, the lab should put in there what the equation used is for those items. And so that's something, especially in the beginning when we were starting, people are like, well, my total CBD is different from lab to lab. And it was a pretty big difference. Well, some labs were using the CBDA as the decarboxylated value, and some were just adding CBDA and CBD together because there's not regulations on what those equations are supposed to be. So there's not really extremely right or wrong answer. Total THC is regulated, but the rest aren't. So I always recommend looking at those as well. But then if you see something like analytes, these all here are going to be specific values and they're tested on a 1-to-1 ratio on the machines.
Do you see any new cannabinoids coming up that people are testing for? CBG and CBN are the later up and comers, obviously.
Yeah, I'm hearing all sorts of things all the time. We're constantly trying to keep up with what's coming out next. Yeah. So when we go to trade shows and stuff, it's actually something that I ask very frequently. And some of the things you just hear random ones that I've never even heard. So it's interesting to see what actually ends up sticking and what doesn't. But CBG and CBN, we see quite a bit of that. Delta 8, we were seeing a lot of that until a lot of states started banning that. But yeah, it's always interesting. We always tell our customers too, if we don't have one that you need, by all means call us and see, because the only way we can know, there's likely hundreds of cannabinoids and you can't test for all of them. And there's not standards for all of them either that you can actually use as reference points for the machines. So that can make it interesting as well.
Yeah.
Just for testing.
I've been reading a lot or hearing a lot about this CBDV. I don't know what the big thing about that is lately, but.
Yeah, I started hearing more about that too. And I haven't heard a lot of what exactly it's for yet.
I know I've really been liking the Turtle Pond CBN. I know that really works good for me.
Been hearing a lot about Delta 10, but that one is kind of getting banned along with Delta 8 a lot. So that one seems to be dwindling a little more.
Yeah, in Michigan, anything on the THC side, the THCOs, THC8, the THC10, it's all the marijuana side now.
Oh, interesting. Ours, they just came out with a new law in North Dakota that bans Delta 8, 10, 6, and 7, I think is how they have it written. But I think they're planning on just continuing to add to that as things come up. But
yeah, no, they just moved it to the more expensive aisle. You know, where they get $6,000 for an application. We complain about our $1,250 grower license and $1,300 processor handler, but then on the cannabis side, they're like, "Well, that's cheap."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So you got a QR code up on the top of there. So what if they scan that? What would that give them?
So that's going to bring you to essentially the servers of the COA on a server for Confident Cannabis, which that's the program that we use, and a lot of labs do as well. And the interesting thing about QR codes too is that a lot of times people will see, okay, does the COA that I have match what's on the QR code? That's the first step of just when you're getting a COA from everyone, is to verify that. But there are ways that people have done fraudulence with where they've actually in PDF altered it and altered the QR code and put up a PDF of their new fraudulent COA. So that a few of the ones that I've seen are when that QR code will bring you to something very kind of consumer related, maybe like Box or OneDrive or something like that. So if there's ever any questions on that, definitely contact the lab that did it, and they'll be able to tell you what that link should look like and be able to verify if it's good or not. The other thing too on COAs that a lot of people don't know how to read is you're going to have like these limits of quantification and somewhere in there limits of detection, and you're wanting to make sure. I've seen also where a place was trying to sell seed and their CBD I think was like 16-17%, which with non-detect THC. I was like, that's kind of a red flag in itself. So looking into it, the lab that they had used was primarily a marijuana lab. And so their limits, they didn't test below 1% for THCA or 1% for Delta 9. So when you add that together, I mean, we'll say like around 1.9% or so for the total THC. So it kept saying non-detect, and when in all reality, it could have been up to almost 2% THC in there. So that's something people should look at a lot, especially in states that there's marijuana specific labs, because there's a lot of that as well. There are different dilutions and different ways that you test marijuana versus hemp. It's essentially the same test, but the THC in marijuana is a lot higher than in hemp, and so it's just it is different on how you do it a little bit. So it's important to see that.
In your lab, like our state lab, they came out with a factor. What do they call that factor, Blaine? And it's like a 0.08. Is it?
Measurement uncertainty.
If you'll notice, Dave, on her COA, she has her total THC equals THCA times 0.0788 plus the Delta 9 THC.
Yeah, that's the normal factor for the THCA, but I'm talking about the equipment variation.
The measurement uncertainty.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
Yep. The measurement uncertainty.
Thank you. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So this is actually an old COA. I just use it for marketing purposes. So I don't actually have that on here, but on our current ones that people are getting, it states the measurement uncertainty on there too. That truthfully kind of depends a little bit on the state too, and for each lab. The hard thing with measurement uncertainty is that labs are just trying to deal with, I guess, is one of the biggest pieces of measurement uncertainty is going to be the sampling. And in hemp, generally the lab isn't responsible for the sampling. And so we're trying to equate for a measurement or an uncertainty that we don't have control over. So there is a lot of assumptions made in that. But by far, one of the biggest uncertainties is sampling. That has the biggest variation. Yeah. So it gets
for Michigan, for Michigan, it's 0.06. So you could be 0.36 to 0.24 and be in the range for the state for as far as compliance in Michigan. That's what the Geekly lab has. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's each lab determines it. There's a bunch of different ways on how to determine measurement uncertainty. So it's something that chemists work on a lot of. You can either assign various uncertainties to specific things like sampling and sample prep and with using standards or the machine and a lot of things like that. Or you can use proficiencies like through Emerald Scientific and see what your uncertainties are, what your variation is off of that. There's a few different ways on that. There's not an extremely standardized way across the industry yet. So there can be some variation with that.
With confidentiality, trying to figure out if this COA is good or if it's been altered or not. So if a person that was going to buy this particular biomass said, I'm not so sure about this, I want to call the lab and talk to them. if they gave you this information, would there be a confidentiality problem with you to be able to verify that? Or would you be able to say yes or no? Or what would you need for them to be able to verify?
Yeah, so we won't, if someone comes, it really depends on how they ask. So if somebody came to us and said, we have a COA from Dave, from this date, can you tell me what the THC was or the CBD was so I can verify my COA? There's no way I would do that. There's no way I would tell a result, for someone else. A lot of times we can verify with the customer that it's okay, but if people are able to give like the unique identifiers and then read everything off, and say, is this a valid, or is this link a valid link, or is this, does this seem to be a valid certificate? We can say a yes or no, but we're not going to give any identifying information.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So what's some of the other ways that we would look at a COA and know that, we need to do a little more research on it to make sure it's right?
Yeah, so we purposefully put these like watermarks and stuff in the back, where the results are, to make it a lot harder to alter them. Unfortunately, Adobe's gotten really good. So there's a lot of different ways people do stuff, but we also recommend people, when we're looking at these types of COAs, to look at your ratios. Do those ratios seem normal for this type of strain or this type of product? Question things if it seems too good to be true, because a lot of times it is. That's what we've seen a lot, like with that 16, 17+ % CBD and non-detect THC on plant material. That's too good to be true. So it definitely something to question on there. And then just verifying that it's a good lab that you feel you can trust, by looking at the lab's website or their accreditations or anything like that. These badges here that we have on them, those are one of the only like reference proficiency type blind studies that are done for hemp and marijuana labs. And they'll give you that badge as long as you are proficient and within ranges. So that's something good to look out for labs, is making sure that they can do that. You can be ISO accredited and still not have great quality on it. There are different ways. Just this industry, it's different and it's new, and the methods and the testing are all new. So this is a great way to double check it in a different way to make sure that you're within ranges that you should be, and kind of doubling up on different quality measures. So I'm trying to think if there was anything else.
How often do you have to get, I'm gonna call it reaccredited, or be able to use those kind of things on when you're putting out a test or doing that? How often do you have to get?
So it really depends on how often you want to do it. We make sure that we redo these badges at least once a year. For potency, we generally do more often since we run that so often. But on the badge, let's see if my quality is good enough to zoom in on here. But on the badge, it'll actually tell you what year and what one it is. So this is an old COA. So it says fall 2019. So you can see if they're actually up to date. And if it's been a while since they've gotten a new badge.
Cool.
I really like the Emerald test.
Yeah.
We're really grateful for that.
Little Easter eggs built into that thing, eh?
Yep, definitely.
Good. That's good. I keep them honest. So I see mycotoxins and terpenes and heavy metals and solvents. Those are those all added tests? Some people just test potency and some go the full spectrum, right?
Yeah, and there's everything in between. So we have where you can pick and choose whatever tests you want to do, or you can do a traditional full panel, and that with a package on it. So it really depends. honestly, in the very beginning, terpenes was something that we were thinking a lot of people weren't going to test for because it's not a safety test and to make sure it's good for consumption. And it's actually been one of our top tests under potency. So I know terpenes people use a lot for their different marketing and formulation and everything. So that one's really fun. I like the terpene tests. I like that the COAs kind of give you a generalized idea based off of these analytes, if it's hoppy or earthy and if it has citrus in it. And so that's really fun. And then you can get into, your microbials, and we just make sure that each one of these are separate pages, or within your PDF. It's one in all, but then it's really easy for people to just pick and choose what they want to test for. And ultimately it's really for the buyer. Buyers, a lot of time, if there's not state regulations, buyers will say, this is what I need in order to buy it. And everyone's just a little different.
Can you go back to the terpenes? So what do those graphics represent? Is that telling us what's in that profile of those terpenes?
Yeah, so based on the actual profile, like with myrcene, and I can't say that, ocimene, don't judge me. I'm not great at saying these names. So based on what you have for the mass of each, it's going to give you in order basically on what some of those aromas or flavors are going to be. We see a lot of COAs that honestly just have one of these here. It's not going to just take them and take them down the line. And some hemp will have 3 of these boxes filled out and saying that it's hoppy, earthy, and cinnamon. So it really depends. It analyzes what this data is and gives you the top ones.
Oh, that's cool. That is cool. Just
hops makes sense. I mean, hops make sense, certainly. With the product, that's for sure. So
those are fun ones to see when those COAs are coming through each day of what the different profiles of each of the different products are. It's always really fun to see the different ways people can do this and how different each strain is.
Well, that's like one of our sponsors, Lakeland Hemp, and we'll just give them a shout out again. They talked about their terpene profiles and what they're able to do, and that, like you say, that's a big marketing tool. That effect of the terpenes has a big effect on the benefits of the product.
Definitely.
For compliance purposes here in the state, we only have one lab that we can send to, which is the state, which they do a great job. So no complaints there. But how do they do that in your state? Are you approved to do the compliance part of it, or?
Yeah, we are the one that's contracted and does the state ones. But the thing that a lot of people get confused is that the state compliance testing and your own personal testing for either research and development or just proactive testing to see where you're at is completely different. So, the test is the same, but the regulations on it are completely different. So North Dakota, we are the lab that does the compliance testing, but let's just say we're not, it's someone else. People in North Dakota are still able to, and really any states are able to send into us, and then we tell them what their potency profile is, and they can use that to determine when they need to harvest, how close they are. A lot of people may use a different lab than who the compliance lab is for that purpose, primarily due to turnaround time and customer service. So we get that question a lot where people are like, well, you're not the lab that does our state testing. And while it is good to make sure, that is comparing apples to apples, but really, if you're making sure each one are reputable labs, then there shouldn't be a big difference. And you can send in tests wherever you want and however often you want.
So under the new rules, the lab has to be a DEA certified lab, and you're still going through that process. There aren't any other DEA certified labs in your market?
We're the only lab in North Dakota that does any of that type of stuff. But we have, I don't think any of the labs have been able to get the final approval for DEA registration yet. So we've been going through it for a little while. And there's definitely a reason why it keeps getting pushed in the rules. of the deadline. So the deadline is pushed again. I mean, a few months ago, I'm bad with timing, so I'm not sure exactly how long ago that was, but they kind of keep making it an extra year for labs to be able to do that. And truthfully, the process is it's very lengthy. Once your information gets out to DC, it can take quite a while to get the approval. So it'll be interesting to see if that gets pushed again. We are in certain contracts that we're in and certain places, as long as we have it shown that we're going through the DEA registration, that's really what matters to a lot of people, since everyone knows that's a really lengthy process.
I see this COA you have is like 8 pages. So what does the rest of this COA show us?
So we have each of the different tests. So, microbials in here. A good thing to note too on these is ask your lab what references they're going off of. Like we, for a lot of ours, go off of the Oregon standards for our pass fail, but that can be changed. We just do it as kind of a generic thing, that seems to end up being one of the more neutral laws to go by, since a lot of states don't have action limits. But if you do have specific action limits, generally the lab can change that as long as it's a viable thing on there. Then we have, the mycotoxins, and that's going to show what, like this shows what we can test to, what the amounts are. Oh, oops. What the results actually are. And then this limit here is going to show you what we as the lab are using as the action limit. So if these units over here were to say 22 parts per billion, then it would say fail here because it's above the 20 parts per billion. So that's a good way to see if what your lab is doing is in line with what your buyer needs, because sometimes they have specifications on what state rules they'll go by. And then there's the heavy metals. It's the same thing there. Heavy metals are a lot more nationally accepted as the same limits. I haven't actually seen too many that are very different than this amount. So that's nice because some things are very, very different, like pesticides. So pesticides, I think we have 3 pages, maybe. Okay,
I saw one fail on that list. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so let me show you that.
Your sample.
So this is a fake one, but we wanted to show what it looks like when it's failed. So our limit is 0.2 parts per million, and this one tested at 0.89 parts per million. So it automatically says it fails. And then also to help with that fraudulent aspect, we have fail on each one of the pesticides pages. So it shows that, so it's not as easy for someone to just go in and change those items.
Yeah.
Have you seen, since you're the one that does it for your state, have you seen many samples that have come in, like that have failed as far as the THC level? I know that when we talked to Molly the other day and we did her on, she said they had done 50 tests, and out of those 50, 5 had failed. One of them was a fiber variety, which was interesting. So
yeah, actually, those the fiber and grain ones are always the interesting ones when you get them in, because it's not as easy to tell. And a lot of people think, and a lot of people are sold on that variety can't possibly go above the limit for THC. I hear that a lot from people. And then you test it and it shows a different story. So it's CBD side or the cannabinoid side. I feel like, at least in the areas that we are testing, a lot of people have realized you really do need to do at least a little bit of proactive testing before you call the state out to make sure that you're not getting close to that hot limit. But with grain and fiber, people think that it's not possible, so they don't even think about it. And then the state comes in and it fails.
Ouch.
So we don't see a lot that fail. I guess in our state at all. North Dakota has a really wonderful education program with the farmers and everything, and they highly recommend people they kind of say in a general sense, don't get mad at me if your crop goes hot if you didn't proactively test your stuff. So they're pretty blunt about it and just like, hey, you have a lot of money invested in here, and you should definitely look at that.
What kind of
So,
schedule do you recommend on testing?
No, I've seen so many different types of schedules. I've seen people that from the time that, the buds are like that big, they'll start testing once a week or once every other week. A lot of times you'll see people test a lot more heavily like that if it's a new variety that they're trying. Because a lot of times people, they may not do it because they think it's going hot, but they may just want to track the progress and give them better data so that they can more easily predict when they're going to need to harvest based on different results in the future. And but people, a lot of times if they test and it comes back really, really low, then they're going to wait a bit longer and then throw another one. And as they get closer, those intervals usually start getting smaller and smaller because they just want to make sure they're not going hot. But we actually have a blog post on it on our website on the proactive part of testing for hemp for the THC while it's being grown. And we talk a lot about different cycles in there as well, if anyone's interested.
can you bring up your website?
Yeah, I can. It's hempinspection.com. And let's see here. So we have different blog posts under the blog area. Sorry, we're having issues with our internet today. I'm surprised this is working well. So we have different ones here on how to sample your hemp product. That's something I'm like crazy passionate about. On the grain side, like the wheat, corn, and soybean grain, we are so heavily regulated on the sampling aspect of like sampling rail cars or barges or containers full of grain. It's our belief on the grain side in the federal, we work on behalf of the USDA basically on that side of that business. And they tell us if you don't have a representative sample, no testing after that matters. Because if you don't have a representative sample, there's no possible way to test it accurately. So that's something I'm super passionate about is representative sampling. So there's a few resources on here about that. And then we have differences on quality, different things on microbials, since that seems to be the one that people don't know as much. When to test if your processors or retailers, producers, and I have my whole COA is fraudulent one as well in there.
Very good.
Wow, you got a lot of information on there.
Yeah, I really like education. That's something I really like doing. So even like on our Instagram, doing, IGTV series on different tests, and a lot of these blog posts, I'll do them in IGTV form as well, so people can see it in video form as well.
Mm-hmm.
So who goes out and pulls the samples that are sent to you? Does the state go out and do that?
If they're compliance ones, the state does it in North Dakota. The North Dakota Department of Ag is the one responsible for that. And then, but for other types of testing, really it's the customer or however they get us the sample. So we just like to try to educate people on how important that is before sending stuff in, so that they know that they're getting their money's worth on the testing as well.
Do you have your list of prices of what it costs for your different tests on the website here, or?
Yeah, we have all of our, we have under sending samples, we have all of our pricing. We have different resources on like how much samples should you send in. That's one of the biggest questions we get asked is how much. And we have the minimum amounts on there, but we always tell people more is always better. It gives you a better representative sample. And a new customer link to sign up as a new customer. It's really quick, shoots us an email. And then any other thing that you're needing on there. We try to be very transparent. I know there's a lot of places that like to kind of hold their information close to them, but everyone's lives, if you're dealing with hemp, your life is probably really busy and you have a million things going on, I feel like. So the last thing you need to do is to email this person and then this person to get all the different information. So we just try to make it as readily available and transparent as possible.
Excellent. And I see people can sign up to get notified of new blog posts right there with their email address.
Yeah.
And that's hempinspection.com.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else we missed, Kia? We're almost time for the recipe, Blaine. This hour is just
We're
flowing
getting
by.
close to that, but this is such a good information she's giving here. I want to make sure we get it.
Yeah.
Oh, my computer is freaking out and I can't unshare my screen, just so
Oh,
you're
I
aware.
can fix that.
Dave can fix that. Dave's the wizard. Dave can fix
You
everything.
got it.
Perfect. So yeah, I think that's a
So
lot of,
go back to a little bit. Let's talk. I just want to kind of review. So you said this is a family business. So you're third generation doing this?
yeah. So on the hemp side, my brother and I are the main ones that are doing the day-to-day business. Our father and grandfather are involved as well on bigger picture items, but on the grain inspection side, our grandfather started that. It's been like almost 60 years, 50 plus years. And then our father, Mike, he took over after that. And then my brother and I work hand in hand in that business as well.
So you were brought up doing this all the way through everything. Wow.
Yep. We really love testing.
And I know you said you're located, where's the address, I guess? What city are you guys located in? Where are you at?
We're in Fargo, North Dakota.
Okay.
And it really is like the show, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, we do actually talk like that a lot. I get made fun of so much at trade shows.
Sorry.
You know, it's okay. Accept it. I always get, are you from Canada?
Well, you're not doing A lot, so that's good. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I try to tone it down.
you corrected that, so that's good. So yeah.
You're awesome.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, Kia, thank you very much for spending the time with us today. And again, thank you for your being a sponsor and helping us out. And you know, it all takes all of us moving forward on this industry because it's still very new. I mean, everybody, I don't know what everybody's expecting. I think we're all expecting a lot, but you know, it takes a while to get the infrastructure in place and to learn all of the ins and outs of this industry and where things are going with it. And as people like you that are certainly helping us being able to meet the criteria that we have to do and be able to make sure that we stay compliant because going hot is not a good thing. That's for sure. Not at all.
That's a really hard thing to see when those COAs come through.
Mhm.
Well, we hope to see you in January.
Oh, we will definitely be there. We love
All right.
Michigan.
Excellent. Excellent.
Well, we're a little bit warmer in Fargo at that time of year too, I think. So.
Oh, yeah.
We do promise 68 degrees indoors. So
Yes. Mhm.
yeah, we'll have that.
That's all we can ask for.
Yep.
All right. Anything else, Dave or Kia? You want to wrap up with anything?
I don't think so. I really appreciate you guys having me.
All right, let's go over again one more time how people can get a hold of you and they can talk to you about your services. How do we do that?
Hempinspection.com has all of our information on there. That's just kind of the easiest one to remember, but we love people calling, emailing, or going through our contact us form on there as well. We have an email that goes to both my brother and I, ait@hempinspection.com. Otherwise, mine is kia@hempinspection.com. So anyway, that's easiest.
All right. Well, thank you, Kia. Thank you very much.
Hey, Blaine, before the recipe, I just want to give a shout out to Mary McGraw from Celtic Acres for
Yeah,
making
talk
my
about your wall,
signs.
Dave. Yeah.
So, thank you, Mary. And, let's think about the expo. We're working on that. The deadline for the early bird deadline is ending
Friday.
tomorrow. So
Yeah.
if you want to save some money, get your booth now.
Yeah.
A
little over 24 hours. Mm-hmm.
And we're one last thing. We're working on hemp fabric flags. We're having some more made up. We're going to auction off a hemp fabric flag and a hemp guitar. So look for that coming up. It's we've got some exciting things happening.
And remember, if you're making any kind of hemp product, whether it be a wood product, whether it be again tinctures, creams, oils like I do, the grain that I do, innovations, all that kind of stuff. The Hempy Award is going to be a great fun time. You're going to want to come to play with that. That's for sure. We haven't had a chance to play in 3 years, folks. So it's time to come play and have fun. So
yes.
All right. So I got to give a shout out to Mary because I'm sporting a new hat today.
Well, Mary and Brad, who was our designer at iHemp Manufacturing, he made the hat and Mary embroidered it. Yep.
So this is way cool. I love this. This is so much better than the paper one. So so thank you again for all that and sending that to me. So this is a great recipe. This is again, I like simple, easy things. This is pretty simple and easy. It's about a 15-minute prep time, and it's about a 15-minute cook time. And it's hemp crusted baked chicken tenders. These hemp crusted baked chicken tenders are simple to make, crispy, flavorful, and naturally gluten free. This recipe comes to us by Gimme Some Oven, which is a cool name.
All right.
That's where we got this one from. So I always give a shout out to where that belongs. So we like to do that. Ingredients are pretty simple. It's a half a cup of hemp seeds. It's a half a cup of ground almonds or almond meal, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, half tablespoon of smoked paprika, or any paprika for that matter, half tablespoon of salt, 1/4 tablespoon of black pepper, pinch of cayenne pepper, 1.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breast sliced into 1/4 inch thick strips, 2 large egg whites, whisk, and a cooking spray, or you can use olive oil in a mess stove for that. Instructions are pretty simple. You heat it to 400 degrees, put a baking sheet with parchment paper. In a medium bowl, you mix all that fun stuff together. And here's how you set up your dipping stations in order. The chicken strips, the whisked eggs, the hemp breading, the parchment lined baking sheet. You dip each strip into the egg until it's completely covered. Give them a little shake till the extra egg dip gets off of there. Add the chicken strips to the hemp mixture and gently toss until the chicken strip is completely covered. Put that into the oven. Put them in there for about 15 to 20 minutes. You turn about halfway over at one time, and you take out and you enjoy whatever your favorite dipping sauce may be. Mine is one of the French or blue cheese is one of my favorites. So again, a simple, easy recipe. This makes about 4 to 6 servings. So enjoy. And it's a great recipe to try that. So we have all these recipes up on the site, the iHemp site. So we have them all up there. You can have all kinds of great things you can make with all the holidays coming up for sure. So want to thank everybody for joining us today. Next week, we're going to have John Potterfield and Kate O'Hare going to talk about the Hemp Innovation Challenge. Everybody's going to want to know about that. It's a great way to enter in some in. The last winner for that was Victory Hemp last year. So we'll be talking quite a bit about that next week. So again, Kia, we want to thank you again and Adams Independent Testing for taking time today and sharing that information for everybody. And everybody, how do you say that, Dave? Keep your stick on the ice? Is that how you say it?
Keep your head up, stick on the ice, and it's very important to keep your legs moving. So yeah. You miss those opportunities if you're not moving. So, all right. Thanks, Kia.
All right.
Thanks everybody.
So much. Bye.
Love.
See you next week.
Talk to you soon.